My husband's ex thought she owned him, but I had the last laugh. Episode 1. In a clean and well-organized apartment sat a worried woman. She was having conversation with her daughter, and the pleasant aroma of a well-prepared melon soup that wafted the Chike's household was indeed a sharp contrast to the atmosphere that hung over her and her daughter. I can't believe this. Mama, are you being serious with me? No, it just can't be. I must be dreaming, Sophia said, tears streaming down her face as she spoke. Her mother looked up at her, wishing she could tell her she was joking. She wished she could tell her anything just to make her stop crying. But it was the truth. She just couldn't make her daughter keep hanging on false hopes. Yes, Sophia, you were dreaming when you imagined you'll get married before me. All you have ever done in this house is act all-knowing and all-good. And Mama had always supported you, making you feel that I'll always remain behind your trail. But now, what are you going to do about your plans to marry your sugar? Meg taunted, walking in on her younger sister and their mother as they conversed in the sitting room. By the gods, if you don't leave my sight now, Meg, I'll do something that will make you question the fact that I birthed you. How can you be this callous? Your sister is heartbroken, and all you can do is mock her? Mrs. Chike fired at her first daughter. Mother, what Sister Meg had just said shouldn't take your attention from the question I asked you. Please, Mother, tell me it's not true. Tell me I won't be prevented from marrying the man of my dreams just because my sister isn't married yet. Sophia coaxed her mother. Go on, Sophia. Ignore me like you always do. But as you can see, whether you agree to the fact that I remain a very vital part of you or not, the time has come for you to see just how important I am to you. My happiness is that Mama can't do anything to make things go otherwise, Meg said, sitting carelessly opposite her sister. You're not talking, Mama. Please say something. Is Brad going to be unable to marry me traditionally? Are you truly going to sit by and watch me miss the man of my dreams? Sophia asked, her eyes already swollen from the heartfelt cries. Sophia, I'm sorry that this is happening, but like your sister said, you can't marry Brad now, at least not until Meg gets married, her mother told Sophia, hugging her as she spoke. Ah, Mama, this is unbelievable. It is totally unacceptable, Mama, and I won't take it. Why does she always have to obstruct me every step of the way? Why is Sister Meg always a hindrance to me? Sophia wailed. May thunder fire you there. I don't blame you at all. Why will you not sit right in front of me and dare accuse me of standing in your way, when all you and Mama have ever done is to make mockery of my life? Meg blew hot. Sister Meg, today isn't one of those days that you'll make me have to suffer your taunts without getting a clap back. Don't trouble me again with your mockery. I'm in pains. Leave me alone, Sister Meg. Sophia shrieked. The nerves. You're shouting back at me? And you're even threatening me. Wow, there's nothing Meg won't see in this house, Meg said, shaking her head. I have told you, Sister Meg, please leave me alone. I don't want to hear those bitter words of yours today, Sophia insisted. Truth is bitter, and whether you and Mama like it or not, I'll keep telling it to you. I am the first daughter of this home, and nothing any of you does can change that, Meg said victoriously. Meg, I can't remember inviting you to come sit here with me. Get out of here at once and let me think of how to pacify my daughter for a problem you created for her, Mrs. Chike said angrily. You see what I was saying? This little brat accuses me of being the reason for her predicament, and instead of you to caution her, you're chasing me away and equally supporting the nonsense she had spoken. How have I caused any problems for her now? Meg asked angrily. You see why I have a problem with you. You're always too slow to reason. Is she not right when she said you're obstructing her? Mrs. Chike asked her daughter in askance. Is there anything she says or does that isn't right in your eyes? Is there anything you won't agree is right, as long as it comes from Sophia? How am I obstructing her? Meg complained. She is unable to marry her heartthrob now because you're not married. And you need me to spell it out that if you had been responsible enough to have brought a suitor home before now, that this problem wouldn't have come up? Her mother raged. Oh, wow! So it's also a failure to be unable to clinch a suitor before a younger sister who had been overly favored and projected by her mother finds one? You think God is sleeping? when you were taking her everywhere you went, buying her the best of clothes and giving her exposure by sending her to choice schools, didn't you think you would be able to continually suppress me? Meg asked, getting up with a triumphant smile. Face it, Sophia, you can't get married until I am married, and there's nothing Mother can do about it. Meg told her sister before she walked out of the sitting room. Sophia's mother talked to her for a long while, explaining why, by their culture, she couldn't get married until her sister, Meg, was married. She remained there, crying for too long. Her tears were literally drying up when she got up to leave. Mama, I won't let Brad go. I can't miss the one for me just because of some crazy tradition. I didn't make Sister Meg unable to get a suitor, and my not marrying now won't make her suitor come now. I will marry Brad now that I can, Sophia said matter-of-factly. I wish it's something you can do as you wish. If only you could just go ahead by merely deciding to, then I would have gladly supported you. But you see, my love, it's just not happening. You can't be given away in marriage before your sister, her mother told her firmly. So what am I supposed to do? Let Brad slip out of my hands and sit here until my sister is ready to live a responsible life? Sophia asked. You ask Brad to hold on. I can help you speak to him, and then we hope that Meg finds someone soon. I can even make some arrangements to see how I can matchmake her to get her off your track. After all, that's what our tradition required us to do, Mrs. Chike volunteered. Sophia looked at her mother and began to cry again. If only she could understand why it was important that she married Brad as soon as possible. If only she could tell her mother the true position of things. But how could she bring herself to tell her mother that if she didn't marry Brad immediately, things will go wrong? What would her mother think about the situation? Would her life ever remain the same if she doesn't marry Brad immediately? Sophia, what is the matter with you? Why are you acting as if there's something to this rush to get married to Brad? Mrs. Chike asked her daughter suddenly. She knew Sophia and Brad loved each other greatly and could understand that they had decided to embark on the together forever journey. What she didn't understand is why she's in so much hurry to do so. Mrs. Chike looked at her daughter when she noticed she didn't say a thing. Sophia was looking morosely, staring into space. Sophia! She screamed and tapped her on her shoulder sharply, startling her daughter with a shove. Mama, I must marry Brad now or I'll lose out from everything. It's going to be a colossal loss for me if this marriage doesn't happen now. Please, Mama, you've got to help me, Sophia insisted. You know I'd do anything for you, Sophia, but I'm concerned about why you're sounding so desperate to get married now. What's the problem? Talk to your mother, her mother persuaded her. Sophia thought for a while, then she made up her mind to tell her mother the true position of things. At least, she could tailor the true story, trimming out the parts that'll put her chances of being with Brad in jeopardy. Mama, Brad has a timeline to choose a wife or lose his inheritance. His aunt, who had been in charge of his inheritances, just made him see the clause his father left in his will just last week. You won't believe it, but his father's condition, as stated in the will, is that he gets married on or before his 30th birthday. Failure to do so would amount to a forfeiture of the assets and estates he left behind. The painful thing is, Brad turns 30 in 2 weeks' time, and his aunt is only letting him know about that clause in the will, Sophia explained. I see. Let's not talk about the aunt now, Sophia. But which type of father makes his only son lose out on his inheritance on the grounds that he didn't get married at 30? Mrs. Cheke asked her daughter. That was actually my first reaction when I heard about it. I wondered why his father could keep such a preposterous condition for him to inherit what should ordinarily be his. It made me even wonder more about the reason his aunt had been left to manage his assets, placing him on salary all these while, even after he left school. I have been imagining what could have made his father believe so much in his sister that he didn't give Brad a chance to take over his business, Sophia was saying. And where does all the wondering leave us, Sophia? What logical answers have you been able to give yourself that made you think it's okay to rush into marriage with him? Mrs. Chike asked her daughter. I asked him about it, and he told me his father had been worried about his indifference towards women. He really didn't have a girlfriend until I met him. Sophia lied. Oh, so the old man may have been worried about the possibility of him never choosing a wife and had to make it a condition for his inheritance, seeing it as his only hope of ensuring he got married. Yes, Mama. So you see what I mean when I say, I have to get married to him now? Do you see why I can't wait for Sister Meg? I just have to get married now, Mama. I can't afford to lose Brad. I love him too much to ever be able to live away from him for the rest of my days. Sophia whined. I understand you perfectly, Sophia dear, but you see, I really can't make things happen as you want. You can't be given out in marriage before Meg is given. But not to worry, my dear. I'm going to see what I can do about Meg's case. I'll find her a suitor as soon as possible. My only worry now is how I'd be able to do that before this 2 weeks elapses. You see, Sophia, by our tradition, any maiden who takes too long to get married gets married off in an arranged marriage to clear the way for the eligible maidens behind her. My regret now is that I didn't begin this on time. Why is the aunt bent on making Brad lose out of his father's inheritance? I'm worried, Sophia. I just hope I'm able to get a suitor to take Meg away. But if that doesn't happen before this ultimatum you've been given, then you just have to see it as the will of God for you. Mrs. Chike concluded. Sophia rushed to her mother, kneeling in front of her and crying some more. Mum, you've got to help me. You need to do whatever you can to help Brad and I. Sister Meg shouldn't be an obstacle to my successful marriage to the only man I have ever loved. Please, Mama. Sophia was saying, Is that little devil still calling my name? For God's sake, let me be Sophia. Can't you do anything in this house without calling me into it? I can't believe since I left here, you haven't let my name out of your foolish mouth. Meg screamed from the door. Sophia turned around, looked at her elder sister, and looked away. Meg was the least of her problems, as it were. She was worried about what she was going to do to ensure her mother didn't find out the actual truth about the situation. She felt very bad that one little problem kept leading to another. First, she had to lie about why Brad didn't get his inheritance without any encumbrances. Then, she had to lie about why he had not been in charge of his father's business, even after he had graduated from school. How could she have been able to bring herself to telling her mother that Brad's father placed those restrictions on him because of the kind of lifestyle he led while the man was alive? How could she tell her mother that although she knows Brad as a cool and collected guy that he has become now that they met, he had always been a very rough guy, entangling with different girls and even older women? How could she bring herself to telling her that the major reason his father had made his sister, Brad's aunt, manage his assets and estates was because Brad was not only extravagant, but also knew next to nothing about running the business? And worse of all, how could she tell her mother that she was pregnant with Brad's child already? How was she to let her mother see how badly she had deviated from all the teachings she had given her, and how for the love she has for Brad, she had allowed him keep making love to her after he had lured her into letting him take away her innocence? Something her mother had told her to guard with all jealousy. How could she let her mother know that the only reason her mother loved her more than Meg, her elder sister, was already gone? And in addition, she was pregnant for a man that would possibly not be her husband. There was no way she was going to let Meg's tantrums distract her, so she ignored her and stood up from her keeling position. She walked back to her seat and came up with another suggestion, trying to see how they could hasten up with the arrangements of a quick marriage for any suitor they can find for Meg when Brad called her. "Hey, Brad, how are you?" she greeted. "I would have been much better if I could marry you tomorrow. My aunt is up to no good. She has come up with another story," he told her. "What did she say again?" Sophia asked impatiently. Brad had barely finished what he was saying when Sophia screamed and threw her phone away. After so long, Sophia's mother was able to get her daughter to calm down considerably, but she was unable to get her to tell her what Brad told her over the phone. Sophia quickly gave everything a good thought and decided to gather herself and show her mother that she was doing just okay. There was no way she was going to tell her mother that Brad had just told her that his aunt has brought out new conditions to make their marriage nearly impossible. She assured her mother that Brad just told her about her aunt's impatience with the wedding plans. Then she walked into her room to get prepared to go out. Coincidentally, as soon as she picked up her handbag to leave, her phone buzzed again. "Hello, baby. You hung up abruptly? Are you all right? Have you told your mother about our plans to quickly get married? There's really no time left, and we have some other important issue to attend to," Brad asked Sophia, sounding so urgent and in distress. Sophia thought about what Brad had said about his aunt and panicked, wondering if she wouldn't lose Brad if she gave Brad the news about the conditions for their marriage over the phone, where she couldn't control what he thinks or says. "Babes, there's a problem. You need to come over now. I can't really tell you everything on the phone, but babes, there's a big problem right now," Sophia said, her voice shaking. She hung up as soon as she had told him what she had to say. Brad looked at the phone in shock, wondering what was wrong. Did someone manage to convince her to leave me? Did she somehow find out that I've been keeping all these girls despite my carefulness? Brad wondered as he sat looking at the phone in his hand. But why have I not been able to do away with this weakness? I just hope that I don't lose this girl after everything. I love her too much to let her go. She'd better not be thinking of leaving me. I just have to marry her now. Sophia must be mine, he screamed in frustration. He got prepared to leave for Sophia's house immediately. He needed to see her and know what the hullabaloo was about and sort them out before she became more resolved to call it quits. "Good evening, Mummy," he greeted Mrs. Chike respectfully, bowing as he greeted. He had always given this woman a good impression of himself. Little wonder she liked him. Mrs. Chike looked at Brad, and she could tell why her daughter was desperate to get married to him. He could easily be taken away in just a minute of carelessness. Not only was he very handsome, he was equally well-behaved and fun to be around. She had always liked him because he treated Sophia so well, but the worry on his face as he entered their house, almost immediately after his call with Sophia ended, showed just how much he too was in a hurry to marry her. And this made her see how important it was for her to help them get things done as quickly as possible. "Good evening, Brad. How have you been?" Mrs. Chike responded. "I would have been way better than I have been all day long if Sophia hadn't sounded so worried over the phone." He answered quickly before he rushed to Sophia's sides. "Hey, babe, what's happening? Why did you sound like your soul was on fire? What's up?" he asked her, squatting in front of her. "Babes, we may never make it together. Tradition is about to ruin the beautiful thing we have going," Sophia said, tears rolling down her face. "What is she talking about, Mummy? What does she mean, tradition? Does your tradition prevent two people who are so in love from getting married?" he asked Mrs. Chike, breaking into cold sweat at the mention of the possibility of never ending up with her. Mrs. Chike looked at her daughter, then at Brad. "Brad, it's not totally true what she says. I'm going to see what I can do to make sure you two end up as desired, but there's just no guarantee that everything will work out. Sophia will explain to you," she told him and walked out to let the two lovers talk. "Baby, will you stop crying and talk to me? Will you please speak up? You know more than anyone else that seeing you in tears will do nothing but shred my heart in tiny bits. Please stop crying, my love," he begged her, stroking her back lovingly. But the more he showed her how much he cared for her, the more she cried, resting her head on the shoulder he had just given her to lean on. Brad wrapped his arms around Sophia, willing the warmth of his embrace could somehow make her pains go away. After a very long time and so much cuddling, Sophia found her voice and told Brad all that her mother had said and how she had promised to help them get Meg out of the way. Brad couldn't believe what he was hearing. Sophia's tradition was standing in the way as well, when his aunt was already making things so difficult for him. "Why is everything going this way, baby? Why does it seem things are all working against us? My aunt was in my house earlier today, just to let me know that whoever I'm to get married to must undergo medical screening to be sure she is neither infected with any disease nor pregnant already," Brad said, his head hanging so low. What? Sophia screamed, successfully covering her mouth only after the scream had escaped. You're not allowed to marry anyone already pregnant? Why is that? I mean, how does that concern the inheritance? Doesn't all these seem like she's just out to witch hunt you? Sophia exclaimed. That's a fact, baby. She's out to do anything she can to rid me of the inheritance. But my worry is what we're going to do. She has the powers, and all because my dad decided to make things difficult for his only son. But I'm not going to let her strip me of the inheritance. I'm going to fight, he said firmly. What are we going to do then? Oh God, so this issue of waiting for my sister to get married first isn't enough problems already? Why will we have to go through this again? She asked in tears. Brad hugged Sophia again, almost crying as he watched her grieve pitifully. He had a perfect plan in mind, but he didn't know how to tell her about it, knowing the kind of person she is. He tried so hard to console her, promising her that nothing on earth would make him stay away from her as far as this lifetime is concerned. But baby, if we're going to get things work for us, we're going to make some sacrifices. Please don't hate me for saying this, but we will have to terminate this pregnancy, he told her fearfully. Sophia pulled away from him, looked at him angrily, and spoke with her clenched fist, hitting him on his chest. How dare you, Brad? How dare you suggest something as preposterous as abortion? First, you made me lose my innocence, getting in bed with you, because of your constant threats of leaving me if I didn't let you have sex with me. I told you from the start that the only reason my mother loves me and favors me above my sister is my adherence to her policies and instructions. When I agreed to be your girlfriend, I told you there wasn't going to be sex, but you found a way of make me do your biddings with your incessant threats, when I have already fallen so badly for you. Then I found out about your numerous girlfriends and your reckless lifestyle, and you told me you were going to change. I watched you struggle with these habits until I somehow stopped seeing them. Now, the premarital sex you have always made me engage in has resulted to pregnancy, and you think I have to keep doing despicable things because of you? You want me to have an abortion? Sophia shrieked. Her mother heard her speaking in a loud voice, and though she couldn't make out what she was saying, she knew Sophia was angry, so she rushed to the sitting room to know what it was all about. Is everything okay, Sophia? Her mother asked her as soon as she appeared in the doorway. Sophia quickly composed herself and forced a smile. Mum, it's fine. We're just talking about the traditions and what we can do about it. Sophia lied after looking at Brad, whose eyes were practically aching from winking at her. Then bring your voice down. I told you I'm going to work on it. And as you can see, Brad is such a gentleman. He has been calmly taking all your screams and tantrums since he got here. You don't want to make him get fed up with your attitude, she whispered in her daughter's ear before she walked out again. Sophia watched her mother disappear through the dining door, and she couldn't help but wish she had listened to all her admonitions. How can my life keep getting this messier just because I love a man? What am I going to do about this now? I should never have listened to him. I should have insisted on the no premarital sex stance. Now see how I have to keep telling my mother lies. How devastated she'd be the day she finds out that the daughter whom she had felt is better than her first is actually same, if not worse, she thought unhappily. Baby, please help me. You've got to help us make this sacrifice. I cannot afford to miss you, and my aunt is bent on making life miserable for me, he begged her some more. I won't do it, Brad. I can't, and I won't. I'd rather not marry you than have to do such evil, she told him calmly but firmly. You wouldn't dare, Sophia. You wouldn't dare make me have to stay a moment of my life without you. It's okay if you say you won't abort. Then I'll have to forfeit the inheritance. After all, your sister is yet to find a suitor, too. I'm willing to wait until she gets married. Then we can get married, have our child, and move on with life. It doesn't matter if I have to start learning to work and earn a living. It's better than having to stay without you forever, he told her. Sophia covered her mouth with her right palm, fresh tears rolling down her face. She looked up at him in shock, and when she spoke, her voice was choked with the sobs. Brad, you'd forfeit your inheritance just to marry me? You'll give up that which you have always fought for For the sake of what we share? She asked him, holding his face in her palms. Yes, baby. I've never worked all my life, but to love is to make sacrifices. Yom, I was hoping you'd be willing to make this sacrifice I asked of you. After all, when we get married, we'd have more children to show for our nights of passion. But I'm not going to make you have to do what you don't want to do. So I'll forfeit the inheritance, he told her. No, Brad, you won't. You won't forfeit the inheritance after all your aunt has done to make it happen that way. It means she had succeeded in her plans. I won't let her do that, Sophia told him. So what are we going to do? My aunt is very capable and thorough. She'll certainly get a trusted hospital to conduct the tests. So what do we do? He asked her, looking very sober. I'll do it. I'll abort the pregnancy and hope I won't have to do another despicable thing in our journey again. I just hope nothing goes wrong, she told him in tears. Thank you, baby. I can't believe you're going to do so much to make our union a reality. I'm going to love you unconditionally for the rest of our days, Brad told her, hugging her tightly. Brad knew he needed to strike while the iron was still hot. If he gave her the chance to mull over this decision again, she may change her mind. And in all honesty, there was no way he could have forfeited his inheritances. Of course not. He had just told her what he knew would make her change her mind. And luckily, it worked. He needed the inheritance like hell, but he didn't want to lose Sophia, so the only solution was to get her abort the pregnancy and marry her to get the inheritance. He told Sophia's mum that they needed to go to his family house. He wanted to introduce Sophia to some family members she hadn't met. She'll not be returning today because she has to attend a party my aunt is hosting in our compound. But not to worry, Mum. I know I'm not supposed to pass the night with her in a room, so she'll be with my aunt because she won't even allow a woman I'm yet to marry stay in a room with me, Brad told Mrs. Chike. The old woman looked at Brad with so much love and admiration. She gave them her blessings and asked Sophia to take good care of herself. Brad and Sophia were soon seated with the doctor that Brad always used for this kind of job. Dr. Kelly always handled the series of abortions Brad carried out on his numerous girlfriends, but he had never seen Sophia, so he was of the impression that she was a new catch. Dr. Kelly, this is Sophia, the woman I want to marry. She is pregnant, Brad began, gritting his teeth as he spoke. Oh, congratulations, my man, Dr. Kelly said, confusion written all over him. For all he knew, Brad knew his business was purely abortion, so why did he bring his pregnant fiancée? Dr. Kelly, I know you're going to be shocked to hear this from me, but we have decided to terminate the pregnancy. You know I've never asked you for this kind of thing, but would you please help us terminate the pregnancy? Please don't judge us. I know abortion is a terrible thing, but we don't have any other option now. For personal reasons, we must abort, he explained, trying to give the impression that he'd never been in the business of abortion. Actually, he never thought the day would come when he'd bring his beloved Sophia before Dr. Kelly. Kelly told them a few things, sounding as official as he could in the circumstance, and then he prepped her for the theater. Sophia was shivering as she was wheeled into the theater, where Dr. Kelly was to perform the abortion. He was a professional in the business, so he already had all the instruments waiting for him in the theater. Brad was both anxious and sad that the first fruit of his love was getting extracted in the manner it was about to get removed, but he couldn't do anything about it. Relax, baby, it's going to be okay. We'll have more soon, and you'll remain happy forever for making this huge sacrifice, he told her, holding her hand as they entered the theater. Dr. Kelly had to sedate her because of the fear in her and Brad's worries about the pains she'd go through. But Brad insisted on staying with him while he worked on her, and because he always paid him handsomely, Kelly never gave Brad a no for an answer. They were friends from way back, and even though Kelly had left school earlier than Brad, he wasn't as rich as Brad. He only went through school because of his uncle's benevolence, so he was always been loyal to Brad, who always gave him financial supports to ensure he didn't have to keep running back to his uncle for everything. About 45 minutes later, Brad was sitting beside Sophia, waiting for her to wake up. The procedure had been concluded some 15 minutes before, but Sophia was still lying unconscious. Dr. Kelly approached Brad, looked at him with so much worry. He didn't know how to tell him what he had to tell him, but he knew it'd be in his best interest to tell him. "Would you please follow me to my office, Brad? There's something important I have to tell you," Kelly told Brad. "You're frightening me, Kelly. I'm waiting for my woman to wake up. I don't even know why she hasn't woken up yet. Don't tell me something has gone wrong, Kelly," Brad said, getting up sharply as Kelly remained silent, looking at him pitifully. "Why aren't you saying anything? Kelly, is she not going to wake up? Is she dead?" he asked, shaking Kelly roughly. "Of course not, Brad. She'll wake up very soon. But there's something I need to speak to you about," Kelly told Brad, who had relaxed considerably and had even released his shirt that he'd been squeezing a while before. He followed Kelly to his office and urged him to say whatever he had to say quickly. He needed to be beside her the moment she opened her eyes. Kelly cleared his throat before he began. "Brad, we've been friends since our teenage years, and you know I can't keep anything from you, no matter what I have to do. He stuttered. "Kelly, it's because of that long-time friendship that I'm not going to hit you now. But I can't say for how long I'd be able to refrain from hitting you if you do not tell me whatever it is you think is cogent enough to have brought me away from the sides of the only woman I love while she still lies unconscious," Brad told him. "There's been a problem," Kelly said quickly before the courage to tell his friend the truth eluded him. "What problem? What are you saying? Wait. I hope the problem has nothing to do with my Sophia," Brad asked, standing up as he spoke. "What do you think the problem is? Do you think Sophia's life will be the same again?" Find out what Dr. Kelly told Brad was the problem and the solution he suggested. If you're new here, please click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to get notified when I post the next episode. Don't forget to leave a comment to tell us what you think about girls like Sophia.